day 36th. And this could be the biggest turning point in the war so far. Iran has shot down 2 US warplanes with 2 pilots, rescued one, and the third one is still reported to be missing and being hunted by Tehran. The first plane, a 2-seater US F-15E jet that was shot down in Iran, with US media reporting that American Special Forces had rescued one of its 2 crew members, with the other still missing. The second place, an A-10 Warthog, a fighter aircraft, was hit near the Strait of Hormuz and has crashed over Kuwait, with the pilot ejecting, however, safely. Much to the embarrassment of the United States, 2 of its warplanes have gone down within 24 hours, and not just these 2 jets, but 2 US Black Hawk helicopters as well, sent in to locate the missing pilot and were deployed for the rescue mission, were also hit. And though they managed to exit the Iranian airspace safely, let's in the meantime talk about the last time when a US fighter jet was brought down by the enemy fire. That dates back to the Iraq war. Let's take a look exactly when it comes to this map for a better understanding where exactly these incidents unfolded. So let's take a look as, when it comes to the precise location is now concerned. What are we looking at? F-15E jet that has been shot down. This is said to be for the first time in Iranian territory where a US warplane has been shot down. One pilot rescued, the other one still whereabouts not known. What are we looking at? Same location, 2 rescue choppers who were deployed in the rescue operations there. They too came in the line of fire of the Iranian forces. Then let's talk about when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, this very area. Now, this area that also was being covered by the US warplanes, that also came under attack, where an A-10 combat aircraft was shot down. However, the pilot is reported to be safe. And this really tell us exactly more about the 2 warplanes that have been shot down, which includes, when it comes to the sophisticated weaponry that the US military, one of the biggest and the strongest in the world, F-15E Strike Eagle, which has been shot down over Iran. It is one of US military's most advanced dual-role fighter aircraft. And this is what we are looking at. It has now been shot down. Of course, this is a combat situation, but when US seems to say that one needs to believe that when it comes to Iranian military, largely that has been decimated. Well, what is the example that has now been given across? This is what has been impacted in the last 24 hours. One of the most advanced fighter jets that we are talking of. It's a dual-role combat aircraft. There you can see one of the pilots there, however, rescued, the other one not known. The air-to-air and air-to-ground capability is something that this fighter jet is built for deep strike missions. And this is a 2-member crew and pilot and weapon systems officer. Now, maximum speed that it can reach to is approximately 2,600 to 3,000 kilometers per hour. And the internal 20 mm multi-barrel gun seems to have been also a part of this fighter jet. Now, what we are looking at, the other one near the Strait of Hormuz, which also came in the line of fire, is this aircraft. This is an A-10 Warthog, which is, when it comes to this very aircraft as well, has also now been shot down. It is designed to destroy tanks. It is a heavy-duty aircraft. The pilot that is projected by a titanium armor, as far as the covering here is concerned. Top speed, it can reach to 706 kilometers per hour. And the long loiter time over the battlefield can fire over 3,900 rounds per minute. It can carry bombs, it can carry rockets, and it can carry missiles. So we are talking about advanced technology there. As far as Srinjoy, good afternoon, we are just specifying when it comes to the damages, of course, that has been incurred by the US side, but this is a combat situation. But what about those statements that came in that Iran still seems to have that very capability of striking down US warplanes?
First of all, for a long time, perhaps the first 30 days, President Trump and others said that the Americans and the Israelis have complete air superiority. If you have complete air superiority, you can hit any target at any time. Now comes 2 planes shot down. First, the F-15 Eagle, which is a top-of-the-line fighter, shot down over Iran. Now that begins to get people worried that if the Iranians have shot down an F-15 Eagle, okay, how come? So what were the radars? What was the SAM missile, etc., etc.? Then we are hearing of a Warthog 810, which is really a tank buster going down near the Strait of Hormuz. So the question is, why was the 810, the Warthog, used in that area? You begin to wonder. Of course, it provides close air support and all that. So 810 Warthog has also gone down. We're not sure how, but the Iranians claim that they have knocked it down. So 2 planes have gone down, irrespective of how, in less than 24 hours, perhaps. Now, the pilots, 2 of the 3 pilots are safe. The 3rd pilot, we don't know anything about. The Americans are looking for him, and the Iranians are looking for him. So that's the important issue now. Where is the pilot? And that apart, the fact that 2 planes have gone down will also suggest that the Americans now know, as the Israelis do, that the Iranians now have, whatever else you say, some level of air defense.
Yes.
Because they would have had radars, they would have had air defense systems. Now, where they've come from, how they're there, we don't know. But they do have them. And they've shot down an Eagle. So how America and Israel also changed their air attack policies remains to be seen. Because
now, as we talked about how advanced, when it comes to this technology that has been used for the superior warfare, aircrafts in the United States military, Srinjoy, it is also important to know that how much the cost that the US seems to be bearing over this current war, and as far as when it could the damages that has now been incurred to such sophisticated weaponry when we speak of these fighter jets. So let's get you an estimate what we are looking at as far as when it comes to the cost is now concerned. We are looking the F-15E Strike Eagle. Well, that seems to be the amount approximately that seems to suggest. When it comes to an A-10 Warthog, the stamp that is also, as we are looking at, has now been shot down. Well, that seems to be, when it comes to the numbers there, when it comes to millions of dollars that seems to have been spent over the jet crashes there. So approximately, if we convert both of them in Indian currency, we are looking at nearly 450 crores that seems to have been lost as far as in this combat situation is concerned. Because here's why this capture could be a huge turning point in the war. If this is true, and what the Iranian media reports have been initially claiming that they captured the pilot, but if that is a fact, this is something that is still not being confirmed from the US side, because will it now bring US to the talking table? Will now it be Iran which is now setting the terms? Because will it also, figure out some sort of a climb down on part of US to de-escalate the conflict? And crucially, will it provide Iran a strategic bargaining chip against the US? Because Iran could also now extract crucial intelligence if the pilot has been captured and in their custody, because that now it means a POW. That defines as a prisoner of war. Because there is a lot of risk when it comes to engaging in this complicated rescue operation. Naturally, this capture would also then undermine America's claims of military superiority against Iran in this entire operation. So remember, if Iran does have an American pilot in its custody, then this could be the possible reason that could certainly weaken, or even when it comes to a certain extent, damage the US image. And it comes to bringing the US and forcing it rather to the negotiating table. Unfortunately, this is a situation that the US has also found itself in before. Here's what we are talking about when it comes to the previous wars that the United States has fought, when Americans were actually held hostage. Iran, 1979, the period that we are looking at, for nearly 444 days. Who were held hostage as the captives included 66 Americans, including diplomats as well. Now what we are looking at, how did it end? When we speak of the Algiers Accord that was signed back in 1981. Then talk talk about it, 1994, in Somalia, the period that it lasted for was for 11 days. Who was held hostage? It was a US Army pilot, Michael Durant, who was in the captivity there. There you can see as far as his image is concerned. And what we are looking at, how did it end? Well, he was released after much sought after negotiations that happened between the warring sides. So this is something that has happened with the United States before, but what is the current situation there? Well, not much clarity seems to be coming in from the US side as what could be its possible next move. So even as the tensions continue to rise in West Asia, we talk about India's angle now, because India's energy supply chain appears to be holding steady, relatively stable as we are looking at, despite the risk and the complications in the Strait